What is up, guys? How are y'all? Welcome in the Rover Sports, guys, and going to be doing a little podcast later, but I think that it's very appropriate that we highlight the beatdown in Texas last night between the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz fumbling the football, making turnovers, and Robert Quinn, phenomenal game. Xavier Woods making great plays. Byron Jones. Dak Prescott stepping up. Jalen Smith. But it really was the pressure of DeMarcus Lawrence and Robert Quinn. Robert Quinn, I believe, with 2 sacks. Malik Collins had an unbelievable play, stuffing the run. Jeff Heath. The defense was absolutely spectacular for the Dallas Cowboys last night. And the Cowboys finally played to their true potential. Now, the Cowboys, the problem with the Dallas Cowboys is that the New Orleans Saints are playing on another level right now. The 49ers are playing great football. It's going to come down to, can Malik Collins, can DeMarcus Lawrence, and can Robert Quinn continue to have this year when the Cowboys get to the playoffs? Can Van Der Esch, can they stop the run like they were doing yesterday? Malik Collins is a huge key for that. Dak Prescott played phenomenally well. Amari Cooper, the throws to Cooper, the throw over Jalen Mills was absolutely a dime. Even some of the slant routes, Dak Prescott was just really sharp. And that 4th and 1 call with the Cowboys going play action fake, rolling out, hitting Ezekiel Elliott, the reverse to Tavon Austin. It was Kellen Moore. It was a masterpiece. It was just like the opening couple of weeks. Now, the Cowboys have hit some adversity this year. And when you look at their losses, at the time it seemed worse because it was Teddy Bridgewater. I think it was only his second start in the NFL at the time, this second start this year for the Saints. So that loss looked really bad for the Cowboys going down to New Orleans and only putting up 10 points. But guess what? That defense has shown that it's an elite level defense with Dennis Allen. They shut down Jacksonville. They went to Chicago, embarrassed Mitchell Trubisky. The Saints are, I think, one of the best teams in the NFC, right up there with the 49ers. So the Cowboys losing in New Orleans, and Teddy Bridgewater is proving to be a really competent level quarterback. He's playing like a starting quarterback. He's getting great rhythm. And obviously the coaching, Taysom Hill, Ted Ginn, the weaponry, Michael Thomas, it's all coming to the forefront for the Saints. And then you look at the Packers, and they're just hitting their stride. They're a complete football team. Aaron Rodgers playing like an MVP. And that loss at home is not a terrible loss. The way they came out was awful. The way that they lost that game. And then the Jets. So when you look at the Cowboys, they're probably going to be a division champion again. They're not going to get a bye. They're just like Kirk Cousins. That's what Jason Garrett and the Cowboys are like. They're a good team. They're a very good franchise, and they have good pieces, and they're good. But are they elite? Are they good enough to make a Super Bowl run? And I don't think that their consistency is that good. I don't trust Jason Garrett in the big game. And the Cowboys, though, they're probably good enough to get to the divisional round. I think they're top 4 in the NFC. You got Green Bay, got the 49ers, the Saints, and then the Cowboys are in the top 4. So it is just like last year, except the Rams are replaced by the 49ers team out of the West. So it's a very top-heavy NFC. And the Vikings are probably going to lose a close game with Kirk Cousins. He's probably going to go to Dallas and lose a game early. But it was a big step for Jason Garrett for this team now, because now I think the Cowboys can go out and I think that they can get to 11-5 and they can win the East again and have a very similar fate to last year. And then that's going to allow Jerry Jones to hire Lincoln Riley. Now let's talk about Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott. Let's talk about the Eagles' failures. What Howie Roseman doesn't understand is that Howie Roseman is not like Bill Belichick. He's way too friendly. He keeps the veterans around. He doesn't cut bait with guys that are not good anymore. That Fletcher Cox contract is not good. Fletcher Cox did nothing yesterday. Brandon Graham, not making a difference on the field. You have two undrafted free agents, or you have a guy in Josh Sweat, who I think is undrafted. He played better than Brandon Graham, who's making $16 million. Carson Wentz, his delivery is slow. The offensive line, Andre Dillard and Sayamalu, they're just getting pushed back on the offensive line. So Wentz, his delivery is slow. He can't scan the field quick enough, and his release is too slow to really be an elite-level quarterback. I think Carson and Dak are pretty similar. I think Dak Prescott, once he gets around Lincoln Riley and Kellen Moore, I think that these coaches are taking Dak to another level. I think Dak is inconsistent. He's like that Kirk Cousins. He's not a top 7 quarterback, but he's probably around that 11 or 12 range. And Carson Wentz, I put Carson behind Dak right now, but I think they're very, very close. I don't think it's obvious. I think that if I had to choose what quarterback I would want, I think Prescott's a better leader. Prescott's able to get out of the pocket better, but Prescott has a better defense and better weapons. So it is very, very close. Dak Prescott has taken a big leap this year. He's making some really talented throws, and Carson Wentz, I think Dak sees the field better than Carson Wentz. I think he's more accurate than Carson Wentz. The big play potential of Carson Wentz, he just doesn't throw deep anymore. And there's no explosive plays in this Eagles passing game. He doesn't allow Alshon Jeffrey. He doesn't trust Jeffrey to make big plays. And Alshon Jeffrey's getting paid $16 million. He's doing nothing. Aguilar's a talented player. Miles Sander, Kelsey, and Peters. It's either the Eagles are old, it's a combination of both. Either the Eagles are old or the coaches are not getting their playmakers the ball. And Aguilar's not old. Alshon Jeffrey is not old. So it's about time that Carson Wentz starts taking shots down the field and starts putting fear in the defenses, because right now they're just teeing off. And Doug Peterson, I mean, it's looking like Frank Reich might have been the brains behind the Eagles' entire plan. I think the Eagles are like a 7-win team. I wasn't hype on the Eagles to start the year because their linebackers are terrible. Nigel Bradham's not good. Their defensive line is really overrated. They're hit and miss. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, and these players. Their secondary is abysmal, and it has been for a while. And Howie Roseman refuses to draft cornerbacks. He decides to trot out Ronald Darby, who the Bills were very willing to let go. And Ronald Darby gets burnt. He's not an elite-level player. Jalen Mills is a good player. He's been hurt, but he's a good player. And then you have Malcolm Jenkins, who's getting old, and Rodney McLeod. So the Eagles are old and stale. And the Cowboys are just a much better overall team. And the Cowboys finally played to their true potential, which is 12-4, 11-5, and a team that will have a chance to get to an NFC title game. But because of Jason Garrett and because they are too inconsistent, because their motivation is not there, the way the Cowboys lost to the Jets last week, the way they started against the Packers, I don't have trust in the Cowboys and Jason Garrett to win playoff games. We've been watching this for so long, but the Cowboys yesterday proved that they are good enough to win the division. They are good enough to win a playoff game, but their ceiling is definitely still inhibited. I'm not going to buy into the trap again of the Dallas Cowboys being an elite level team. Carson Wentz and Dak Prescott is a lot closer than people think. I think it's neck and neck. I think Dak has things that I like. Carson Wentz has a better arm than Dak Prescott. He has an elite level arm. Carson Wentz is a bigger kid. Carson Wentz as a leader. He needs to get better at leading this team. I mean, they can't have anonymous quotes. The way they prepared for the game wasn't good. But I think Kellen Moore is better at calling plays than Doug Peterson. And especially in this sample size, Kellen Moore dominated Doug Peterson heads up. Now, Ezekiel Elliott is better than what the Eagles have. So it's tough. I'd still probably go Carson Wentz over Dak because Carson Wentz played at an MVP level. Carson Wentz has had more expectation on him than Dak Prescott. I like both quarterbacks. I think both are good players in this league. I think Kirk Cousins is pretty similar to both guys right now. And I would still go Carson above Kirk and above Dak Prescott, but the gap is getting closer. And heads up, I just think it's Ezekiel Elliott. I think it's Chris Richard being that much better than Jim Schwartz. It was at home. Amari Cooper is a lot better than Alshon Jeffrey. And I think, obviously, if you put Carson Wentz in the Cowboys situation and you put Dak in the Eagles situation, I think that that Carson Wentz would win if he was the Cowboys starting quarterback. But it just showed you the Eagles are stale. Howie Roseman won't move off of players. Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Alshon Jeffrey, paying guys out the wazoo, bringing back Jason Peters. Andre Dillard didn't have a good game, but I think that Andre Dillard can develop in this league. So it's his first game on the road in a really hostile, tough environment. I'm going to give the kid some time. But really the roster construction, the defense is just awful. Nate Gary starting at linebacker, a converted safety from Nebraska. Rodney McLeod, Jenkins, who looks older. Jalen Mills, Rasul Douglas, and Sidney Jones being your starters with Ronald Darby. And the Eagles, they drafted Arcega-Whiteside in the second round. So Howie Roseman just massively underestimated how bad his defense truly was. And they didn't get any help in the secondary. They could have drafted some good cornerbacks, and instead they did not. Barnett, Arcega-Whiteside. The draft just hasn't really been kind to the Philadelphia Eagles. Miles Sanders not really impacting the game at all. Andre Dillard, Sanders, and Arcega-Whiteside not adding up to wins. And no linebackers to speak of. The defensive line, Malik Jackson got hurt. They're not addressing the defensive tackle position either. They're not stopping the run that well. And their secondary is a mess. And Jim Schwartz right now is a mess, calling all-out blitzes on 3rd and 12. This Eagles team was top-heavy. People looked at their offense and their offensive line and thought that they would coast. But what are you learning about the NFL? You're learning that the Saints are a great football team. You're learning that the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Rams go out and get a Jalen Ramsey. The Packers have a complete team with a defense. The Patriots, the best teams in football, the Bills, they have defenses. And could the Eagles' defense get a little bit better and beat the Buffalo Bills this week? Maybe. I think the Eagles can get to like 8-8 or 7-9. The schedule doesn't get easier, but they're not an elite team. They're not up there with the elites of the NFC. Their defense isn't magically going to get better. And the Cowboys just took it to them. The Cowboys are a lot better talented team. Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are just better drafters than Howie Roseman. They draft Elliott. They draft Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch. They hit on guys like Malik Collins, DeMarcus Lawrence. They go out there and acquire a Robert Quinn. They have Chris Richard and Kellen Moore. So the structure of the organization's pretty damn good, and they're going to be in the second round of the playoffs in the divisional round, and they're going to have their chance at the big boys to see if the Cowboys can actually get over the hump, which history tells us will never happen. But the Cowboys separated themselves last night. Prescott played a beautiful game of football. I think that they were 6 of 14 on 3rd downs. And I'll tell you guys, they outgained the Eagles by like 150 yards, and a lot of that came in garbage time. So let's just look at the stats from yesterday. 4-0 in the turnover battle that usually will decide the course of a ball game, and 37-10 is an absolute beatdown. And Doug Peterson talking all that smack serves him right. What a win for the Cowboys. Eagles go down. I'm happy about it. And Howie Roseman just not an elite level GM this year. He's been very good, but to take that next step, he's been unable to do so. He's been sitting on the laurels of the Super Bowl, and he's not going out there and acquiring great talent.